brother, sister, should under-16s be banned from social media in the UK? It's being voted on today in the Commons, in the Lords. And if that passes, it's up for debate in the Commons. So what do you think? It's a big question, isn't it? Many people are for it, but the father of Molly Russell, the 14-year-old who sadly took her own life because of the effects of social media, he, along with others, including children's charities, he's against it. And he wants governments to stand up against tech companies.
So the only way forward is for the Prime Minister to take action, and for the policies that emerge are the strongest and quickest to make sure safety comes, because there are so many other things you can do rather than just simply banning.
How do we protect our kids from online harms? Esther Jai, the mother of murdered teenager Brianna, thinks a ban on social media is the right thing to do.
I think that more needs to be done to protect children online. I think that the online safety bill is a step in the right direction, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be enough to protect children.
It's partly about mobile phones too, isn't it? What are the rules when it comes to mobile phones and social media with your family? How big an issue is it for you? Many of you, you'll have been on the school run and you'll have had your youngsters with you, or maybe you're the granny or grandpa. I'm just wondering, have you seen the effect of social media on your family? How would a social media ban play out with your teen? Should social media be banned for under-16s? What do you think the pros and cons are? Do you have rules in your house? How easy are they to enforce? How can we protect kids from online harms? It's a world I don't know much about, actually, as an older bloke, because I'm being told in the office that youngsters, you can be 7 years old, you can hear a word at school, plug it into Instagram, and up comes the picture of that act. So do kids have a right to a childhood without worrying about social media? As parents, do you need a line in the sand? Do you need a ban? Does this all come back? It probably does. All comes back to phones and tech. Would you ban these things for under-16s? How do you protect youngsters? Do come on and chat to me. 08085 92 95 00 is the number to call. 08085 92 95 00. There must be a story from your house, or you can text me 80295. Grace McCabe, good morning.
Morning, John.
Law student. What do you think?
I actually really agree with the sentiment of banning social media for under 16s, but it's going to have to be cleverly rolled out. I think a good way of doing that would be to do it like the proposed smoking ban a couple of years ago, where you increase the age or increase the year every year. Because I think it would be really difficult to take social media off of under 16s who've always been on it. I think it would be better to target the kids who might just be about to age up into the kind of 13 age bracket where you're allowed social media, so that they don't know what they're missing, essentially, because I think we're going to have a lot of trouble in our hands if we try and take social media off of 15-year-olds.
Can you help me again? My kids are now in their 30s, so they didn't really have this as an issue, and my grandchildren are too young for that. So you're of a generation where you would have been on Instagram. How old were you when you were on Instagram?
Yeah, so I'm 22 just now, but when I first got Instagram, I was actually in primary 6 because there was no age limit. And my parents let me do it. My dad's actually a cybersecurity engineer, so they were logged into, I could only use it on their phones or their iPads, but I don't think we understood social media to be the problem that it is now, because Instagram is so different to the social media of the early noughties. So I've been on social media since I was about 11 or 10 or 11.
And what, again, and there's more than one social media platform, but help me understand, what kinds of things, without spelling it out too graphically, what kinds of things are youngsters aged 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in Scotland accessing?
So that's what I think the online safety bill isn't getting at. It's not just really graphic, harmful content that's harming young minds. It's the kind of the body image pressures, the diet stuff, the kind of idealised, unrealistic lifestyle that they're being fed. That's so damaging to their mental health. I think that actually social media companies have done a really good job of shutting down, content that might show self-harm, etc. But still, seeing the kind of the fact, when I was on social media when I was younger, 10 years ago, it was the fad diet era of really, really harmful stuff, and that's what we all mimicked. And youngsters are now mimicking like makeup and skincare and thinking that they have to look a certain way when they're still children. That's just as harmful as seeing really graphic stuff, in my opinion.
Is it? So you're forced, you feel forced to look, you feel forced to be something?
Oh, definitely. If you look at like, I mean, I don't know how many 11, 12-year-old girls you would know, but they're all doing like 10-step skincare routines. They're all taking selfies. They're all doing their hair. They're doing their makeup. They're trying to look older. When I was like 10 or 11, I was still playing with Barbies, but I can pinpoint going on social media to that kind of stopping. I definitely changed how I was dressing. I wanted to be more mature, and we're not letting children be children because we're feeding them this content that tells them you have to look this certain way to be cool, be popular, fit in.
Grace, stay with me. So I'd love the calls on this. You're a parent, you're a grandparent. What are the rules? What have you seen youngsters doing? Do you change the rules in your house? 08085 92 95 00 is the number to call. Beautiful day where we are, but come on the phone, or you can text me on 80295. Grace, stay there. Finn Wycherley, you are a social media expert. You're a mum of 5. You're a grandmother of 5.
Yes, indeed.
What do you think?
Back in the early days of when I was a young person, they were always trying to ban magazines because of the unrealistic bloody images it was giving for women, and young girls were getting all kinds of mental health problems as a result. This is a problem as old as time, really. Teenagers are going to have difficult situations, but banning social media is not going to be the answer. What we need is more connection, not leaving them more isolated.
Right. So you think it's okay for a child to go online and just access some of this stuff?
No, so with all of my kids and the grandchildren as well, they're allowed to have unlimited access to social media on the conditions that they have already done their homework, they've already done their chores, they've sat at the table, had conversation, they've had plenty of exercise and outdoor activities. You know, they have a full and healthy life, and then they can have half an hour. But that's the same as on the television. If they're spending a lot of time kind of grossing out on television, that's equally just as toxic. So their access to screens is limited, but they're allowed to express themselves and get access to culture, knowledge, information, wisdom, and other connections as well.
Do you know what they're watching? Do you know what they're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very important to have adult supervision. So the problem for me is not necessarily that there's a problem with social media. The problem is the lack of information and education that the adults have in terms of how they should be supervising their children. Because obviously it's a very vulnerable age, and the algorithms being what they are, they tend to amplify what you're looking for. So if you're looking for toxic information, they'll feed you more of it. If you're looking for uplifting information, they'll feed you more of that.
Grace, you think it would be a good idea, though, don't you, to introduce some kind of ban? What was your idea?
Yeah, I think that the age limit should be increased every year so that under 16s don't get access to it, and then we take it off them, because I think the damage is done the younger that you're on it. It was really interesting to hear that magazines were proposed to be banned years ago. I think the difference is, though, the algorithm, it's more than just what you're searching for. It feeds you stuff that you don't necessarily want to see. It takes into account where you live, how old you are, your gender. It's more a magazine you need to go and pick up, whereas I think that the algorithms are more sophisticated. I mean, they're designed to sell you things, and like image pressure sells. But yeah, I think like having been an under 16 on social media, I'm all for banning it.
So you would ban it. So Finn, there's a 22-year-old saying we should ban it.
Yeah, well, my 22-year-old, she would have my head in her hands for it, because it's part of how she actually earns money. You know, there's millions and millions of people now in the digital economy, and you can't hire all these people who are able to have extra sources of income if they're digitally illiterate. What we need is more literacy and less ignorance when it comes to how to be responsible and mature. about discerning what is toxic information, what is fake news, and what is coming from official or realistic sources. So, for example, the algorithm is always going to give you rubbish if it doesn't really understand what you like. So normally I work with a lot of lawyers and accountants in America and UK, and if I tell them you're going to be starring on TikTok from now on a regular basis, of course they're appalled because they're professional and responsible. And as soon as they go onto TikTok, of course they get fed all kinds of garbage. But once the algorithm understands, no, you're interested in professional stuff, you're interested in responsible stuff, it's going to feed you more and more of that. So therefore, their news feed becomes full of the kind of information that enhances their lives.
And then one day it feeds you suicidal stuff.
It would never feed you suicidal stuff unless you were actually interested in that type of stuff. That the algorithms are just built like that.
Sorry, but is that helpful?
Pardon?
Is that helpful?
So
you're thinking about something terrible and something terrible comes back and amplifies it. Is that really helpful?
My problem with children or adults...
Why would you live in a world where that's available? Why would you live in a world where that is available?
My problem is that when people are feeling suicidal, then they need to have lots of support. They need to have lots of information. They need to have outlets where they can actually speak to people. The problem is not social media. The problem is lack of access to people who can make them feel better when they're feeling despair. So the confiscating of a telephone is not going to answer the problem of despair, isolation and bullying.
We're getting great text on this. Tony in Edinburgh. Hello, good morning. Social media should be up to the child's parents, not the government. William in Alloa. No under 16 should not be banned from social media, and people calling for the politicians to do so have Stockholm syndrome. The problem is not the media tool, but how we use them. Let's change that. Instead of a blanket ban that won't work and can be easily bypassed. Instead, educators should pivot to inspire young people to differentiate between constructive and unconstructive social media use. Grace, I guess that's the point, isn't it? If kids have the tools to understand what is good and what is bad, although your brain's not developed until you're in your 20s, it helps them, doesn't it?
Yes, but I also think that it's like the dopamine receptors in your brain. There's been research into like delayed satisfaction, etc. The blue light and the kind of, especially TikTok, when it's so many short videos, it gives you like short satisfaction really quickly, and essentially it becomes addictive. So I think it goes beyond discerning what's good and what's bad, because I think that's something that an adult can do or someone a bit older. But I think that the way that information is presented to you on TikTok and on Instagram, it's not like when YouTube was a big thing and you would sit and watch a 40-minute video. It's shortening your attention span and it becomes so addictive. And I also think like it immortalizes everything. Nothing, like everything is that you post online is online forever, and children don't get that privacy that they used to have.
Tell me something, this shortening of attention spans, I heard this from my daughter, that the cartoons that her wee boys watch now have very short clips in them. So things are, used to have maybe 30-second clip, they're now down to 4 or 5 seconds, and that changes the way kids watch things, is that right? They're deliberately out there shortening every clip because that's more addictive?
Yeah, it does. It's the same way that like sugar is addictive because it gives us a really short burst of energy and our body doesn't have to do as much work to digest it to get the energy in the first place. And I can 100% see how my attention span has been shortened from when when TikTok became a thing. I can definitely see an impact on my concentration, and I think that's a bigger issue than the so-called toxic content. I think that is actually very few and far between, but it's the kind of image pressures and the shortening of attention span that just makes you want to consume more and more online. Wow,
I didn't know about that. Listen, you can call me 08085 92 95 00. Text me 80295. We've got Grace on the line. We've got Finn on the line. We spoke about some dangerous material online just there. If it's helpful, anyone listening and hearing that, if you're feeling emotionally distressed, would like details of organisations which offer advice and support, go online to bbc.co.uk/action line, or you can call for free anytime to hear recorded information 0800 066 066. Michael in Glasgow, do come on and chat. You'll be a parent or a grandparent or a brother or a sister. How does it work in your family? Do you think this stuff is good for youngsters to be in? Effectively, we know, don't we, kids can be in two places at one time. You think you're talking to a youngster, but they're on a phone and they're away somewhere else. Michael in Glasgow. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure.
So I've got a 15-year-old daughter who spends a lot of time on social media, and to limit that is near impossible because the tantrums they throw and the aggression they show because they can't get a fix on social media, it's very toxic. And I speak to other parents who of children the same age, and they're finding the exact same. All these social media sites, they should be limited. They should be banned. Under 16 should be banned from, in my opinion. And they start on these sites at a very young age, and there's a lot of limited control for an adult. I used to be able to get my older daughter to check my daughter's phone. I don't get that. That doesn't happen anymore because I try to trust her. But you've got to find the balance, and sometimes it's hard to find that balance. And some of the stuff on social media is toxic.
Just describe then, she gets angry when you ask her to come off social media.
It's angry and come off her phone, yes. And to try and even to do some chores, to tidy their room, things like that. Social media comes first. Friends come first. And by the way, she's got a strong group of friends who are on the phone, and they're all on group chats at the same time. So it's not just my daughter that's doing it, it's other kids as well.
What do you think it's doing to them?
It's certainly taking up a lot of their time that they could be spending out doing other things, and they could be a lot more proactive. They could be a lot more social because it just takes away their time, and even doing family chores or family things can be a bit challenging for them. And even when you have family events, they'll sit in a corner with other people and they'll just be on their phones. And even when they're at lunchtime and at schools and stuff like that, they don't sit and have conversations. They'll sit and they'll be on their phones. And even, it sounds ludicrous, they'll have a conversation on their phone with the person sitting at the same table. And that's how bad it's become. And the children, and they are children, they need to be controlled with social media, and it needs to be limited on a daily basis. And you need to start that from a very young age because it can get out of control. And if it's out of control for my daughter just now, I would say it is. And it's the same with a lot of people her age.
So, Michael, what would you do then? I mean, there you are. You're being kind to your daughter. You give her a mobile phone. She'll have pestered you for a phone for when?
Yeah.
You get her a mobile phone. You pay for it. You're paying for this. She's not paying for it. And then she won't have it taken off her. What do you say to her?
No, you can restrict her mobile data. You can take it off. You can turn it off. It causes battles. And sometimes, as I said earlier, it's best left alone, and you try and manage the situation as best as possible. But the answer to me is to stop kids universally under 16s and ban them from social media. That would be the solution. And it would help parents throughout Scotland, throughout the UK, I had no doubt. And they should follow Australia's lead and ban kids from under 16s from this. I no doubt they'll find their way around it, but we've got to do our best to try and make it hard and harder for them to get around it and to try and control it a bit better than it is just now.
Michael, thanks for calling in. So there's Michael, whose daughter will be, with a group of friends, will be messaging each other at the table, or she doesn't want to come off social media. Does this affect your family? 08085 92 95 00 is the number to call. You can text me 80295. Excuse me. Grace McCabe on the line, Finn Wycherley too. We've got some texts in. Billy Airdrie. The genie's out the bottle, you can't put it back. Dave and Kilmarnock, social media being banned wouldn't solve the issue, as parents, as they do now, can bow to pressure from kids and set it up to use. Some social media sites have age limits, but younger children can access it. The other issue is that children are given screens at a very young age to keep them quiet in restaurants and even walking to school. We need to educate parents, not just children. That's a good line. So just come on and chat to me about this whole thing of mobile phones, kids on mobile phones, kids on social media, and what you think it's doing to your family, what it's doing to them, and whether you think we have to have a good hard look at it. 08085 92 95 00 is the number to call. You can text me 80295.
Hey Toaster, play BBC Radio Scotland.
Stop asking your toaster to play BBC Radio Scotland. You need something way more intelligent. like me.
Every Monday, you could win a smart speaker to make listening to BBC Radio Scotland even easier. The phone lines will open when you hear the smart speaker say,
Win a smart speaker on BBC Radio Scotland.
Tune in to Mornings on Radio Scotland every Monday from 10 to find out more.
Win me and I'll play BBC Radio Scotland. And I'll never burn your toast.
All right. Okay, you're listening to Mornings with John Beattie, BBC Radio Scotland, coming up later on the phone. And should we be considering a boycott of this summer's World Cup, Football World Cup? A few current and former MPs have suggested the home nation should stay away from the USA because of President Donald Trump's threats to occupy Greenland and impose tariffs on Europe. But what do you think? Are you planning on going to the World Cup this summer? Phil Goodlad was saying there's a football supporters organisation saying we have to look at contingency plans. Are you concerned about travelling to the States in light of recent events? Do you think a boycott would be feasible? Do you think it would achieve anything? I'd love your comments on that. 08085 92 95 00 is the number to call. You can text 80295. Should we boycott America? Boycott the American Football World Cup? Also this morning, Martin James will be here. Our consumer surgery, as always, he gives great advice. Today he'll be talking about whether you can get money back from cancelling all those contracts you're on. Yes, really. So if you have a question, though, it's the same number, 08085 92 95 00. You can text me on 80295.
Call now on 08085 92 95 00.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
You're listening to BBC Radio Scotland. We're talking about should we be banning social media for under 16s? That whole mobile phone culture of people being on their phones. They're not with you. They're on some app or they're talking to other people. John in Dumfries and Galloway. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's sunny Dumfries and Galloway today?
It's a bit bleak, to be honest. I'm not going to lie.
All right. Okay. Well, what do you make of this then? It's going to be voted on. They're going to be debating it, and this issue of social media and youngsters.
They are barraged from all sides. Social media and smartphones at the moment go hand in hand, and I think what we have as a problem in Scotland is that the control of social media certainly in education is a matter for the Scottish Government, or smartphones are a matter for the Scottish Government.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Education is a devolved issue to Scottish Government, who then take it down the road to the local authorities, the 32 local authorities, and in most cases those 32 local authorities take it down to individual head teachers who are empowered to manage their own school communities. And what you have is a postcode lottery across Scotland and a postcode lottery across the 32 local authorities. And at the moment, as of yesterday or the day before, the Minister for online safety has come out and said that they will use Ofsted as a tool to ensure that mobile phones are banned in secondary schools and in schools in England. Yet in Scotland, digital skills or digital technology is actually encouraged by Education Scotland. So we are at odds with England in this.
We're going to have a Scottish, we will have a Scottish Government statement on this. Education is a very tricky subject because much of what youngsters do need now to stay in the market and get themselves ready they are digital skills, aren't they? They need to be able to operate digital skills.
Oh, absolutely. Digital skills, however, is a term that was introduced by Google as a way of making their products more attractive. They need digital skills. If you look at the definition of what digital skills are, and there are many, digital skills are not swiping on social media. Digital skills are programming. They are building computers. They are typing. It is emailing.
Well, they're making money from Instagram. Making money from Instagram too. That's a good social skill. A good media digital skill.
Making money from Instagram off of the back of children who are underage is not a good skill. Your previous callers have talked about this, and I think I would also come out and say I make no money off big tech, for my opinion, or ed tech, for that matter. And I think that's probably sits at odds with a caller or two.
John, this is John's statement from the Scottish Government. Regulation of the internet is reserved. And so any ban on social media would be for the UK Government to consider. To that end, we've engaged with UK ministers to strengthen online protections for children in the Online Safety Act. And the First Minister's called for stronger regulation on social media platforms to protect children and young people. Any head teacher who decides to implement a ban on mobile phones, though, has the Education Secretary's full support. That's exactly why national guidance was updated last year to make it explicit that schools can take appropriate steps to limit the use of mobile phones, including banning their use in school. A number of schools and councils have banned mobile phones. So the schools can ban the mobile. So yeah, if you're a teacher out there, have you banned, or a parent, have mobile phones been banned in your school? 08085 92 95 00. John in Dumfries, though, it's a reserved matter.
For social media, that is correct, yes. But smartphone usage, Scotland, as I've already pointed out, it's approximately a year behind England in terms of learning stats, and we are now behind in terms of a national ban in schools, which Ofsted will police, that Education Scotland remain silent on, and I fully appreciate the comments that have been made in 2024 from the Scottish Government around updated guidance. But what you are seeing on the ground across Scotland is not a ban supported in secondary schools and definitely, or primary schools, but definitely not in secondary schools, due to under-resource and due to the challenge, shall we say, of removing smartphones from your education system. It is simply not happening. And there is a postcode lottery across the whole of Scotland, which is indicated in attainment.
John, thanks for calling in. John in Dumfries and Galloway. I'd love you to call in 08085 92 95 00. How big an issue is this for us? 80295 is the text. Finn Wycherley, you're still there, aren't you? Social media expert, mum of 5. There's a text in here, I think, for you. We'll go to Lewis Keller first. Lewis Keller, Senior Policy Advisor at NSPCC. Hello to you.
Hi there.
What do you make of a ban? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I would say is that obviously here at the NSPCC we hear from children all the time that they're spending too much time on social media and also that they're bombarded with harmful content online. But we don't think that a blanket ban would have the desired effect, and actually what would happen is that children would still be able to access parts of the online world, but those would be a lot less safe. So we've seen, for example, in Australia, who've already implemented a ban like this, that they banned the top 10 social media companies, but actually children will still be able to use kind of gaming platforms and messaging apps where they'll still be exposed to harmful content and contact from strangers. So we think the better approach is to make sure that we're strengthening the legislation we have. So that's things like enforcing minimum age limits. So when, for example, it's 13 for a child to use a social media site, that should be upheld. And also that we tackle some of these addictive features that children are exposed to and that they're so concerned about.
So what would you do then? Because it's all wrapped up, isn't it? It's mobile phones and social media. What would you do?
Yeah, so like I said, so the Online Safety Act, which came into effect last year, had a lot of important steps to protect children online. So a lot of that was focused on preventing contact from strangers and stopping children from seeing harmful content on social media. But it's clear that these rules need to be enforced and they need to go much further. So one thing we say, for example, is that there should be kind of age-appropriate experiences, similar to what you do in sort of films and games, where there's specific age limits for particular, say, films or games, that approach should also be applied to social media platforms. And that can ensure that children are getting a kind of experience online which is suitable for their age. And another really important part is that we're tackling some of these addictive features. So we hear from children that things like streaks or endless scrolls, autoplay are things that really keep them hooked on platforms. So making sure that there's actually legislation in place that makes sure that those sorts of features aren't there, we think would be really important steps on tackling some of the harm that children are facing.
Lewis, thank you very much indeed for that. That's Lewis Keller, Senior Policy Officer at the NSPCC Child Safety Online team. They don't support a blanket ban. Finn Wycherley, I know you're still there. We've got this text in, I think, to you. It says to the woman who says kids need more access to support, not less social media. A young person suffering from bullying or depression might hide away and look for something online, only to see the worst stuff. How are they to know to only seek out uplifting stuff? The darkness they've access to, often from adults, is terrifying, has done so much damage to young girls, even led to self-harming in some cases. And this texter goes on to say, I've seen this with nieces. And as a mum of girls, it's worrying. Finn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very, very important that there should be lots of very strong guidelines and understanding from the parents and from the teachers about what is appropriate and what is not. So, for example, if the child is left to their own devices in terms of how to navigate social media, obviously they're going to find themselves into all kinds of toxic rabbit holes very easily. Whereas if they, what they really need is a lot more collaboration, a lot more guidance, a lot more support so that they can navigate it in a more healthy way. So, for example, just we're talking about the 15-year-old who wasn't putting their phone away at the dinner table. I mean, that's a classic example where probably everybody else around the table is normally got their phones out as well. So for me, that would be an absolute blanket ban. And it's done in discussion. You know, you have to make sure that everybody agrees, because you can't get a child to just obey authority. You're going to get them to agree and collaborate with lots of guidelines and sanctions and consequences that they agree to, so that therefore all the principles are laid out very cohesively, and they're able to respond responsibly to the guidelines that are set by the parents. But also, the parents have to be good role models. I mean, I don't know how many times I see kids trying to talk to their parents, and the parents are busy on their phones on the buses or at the dinner tables as well. So it has to be something that the parents take much more responsibility for as role models. And the other aspect is that, you know, I run an agency where we're actually helping 18-year-olds earn lots of income from going live on TikTok, for example. So we're helping people who've got an incredible passion or skill. Say, for example, your daughter with her fantastic role model for football. You know, she was going on a couple of times a week talking about what it's like doing the training, what it's like getting the support from the rest of the team. She would eventually build up a massive community that she would be able to monetize from. And I think in this day and age, we need lots more skills that allow people to have a range of income that allows them to hold their head up high. And it's not about making them more illiterate in the early stages.
Finn, thank you. Finn Wycherley. Mo in Glasgow, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm in support of the ban for under 16. There's medical evidence out there that's proven that as the brain develops for young people, the addiction to phones and apps has a detrimental effect to not only the brain development, but their educational, social, emotional needs as well. I mean, what's happening is, with these apps and things, like a rabbit hole, you're on. You can't say I'm going to go on for 30 seconds or a minute. Before you know it, you're on a couple of hours, because one thing leads to another, to another, to another. It's like an addiction, and it's a form of almost, dumbing the children down. So this is having a effect on their educational needs as well. I mean, children don't know how to spell now, they don't know how to research, they don't know how to...
in 1800, specifically 1888, about cutting the cord, umbilical cords.
Social skills
and I'm shocked to read this, because my understanding is that today, despite being at the peak of science and technology, allegedly, we may be doing some things backwards. Now listen, when the navel string is an unusually long time in separating, so they're saying, they're already saying, when the baby's born, and you got the placenta and the navel string hanging there, when it is an unusually long time in separating, no force is to be used. All will go properly if left to nature. and it actually capitalizes
beneficial
the
for them,
end
and most of the
on
stuff
nature
that's there
here.
is not beneficial for them.
So,
It's detrimental to their development, their social
did you know
and
that?
emotional
And then that
skills
way,
and intelligence.
you're not cutting
And this
off
is
the
what's
baby from the stem cells
harmful.
and the blood that's
This
supposed
is
to be
what we
on the
need to
umbilical
protect the
cord,
children
inside
from.
of the
Would
umbilical
you
cord
just
and the
take
placenta.
mobile
So,
phones off everybody under 16?
are you kidding me?
What
Now,
would you
the
do?
other thing,
You can't
I guess
take
maybe
mobile
back then there
phones.
wasn't
What would you do
really,
then?
like, isn't there some type of
Well,
value
if
attached
you're
to
gonna-
umbilical cords and placentas and
you know,
stuff because of the stem cells in them?
difficult or,
I'm not
you know,
saying, but I think a lot of you guys are commenting saying that, so maybe that's why back then that industry wasn't developed yet. Now listen to this part. The mind requires rest equally with the body. So they're talking about the mother who just gave birth. No painful news or other exciting or disturbing influences should be allowed to reach her.
At the end of the day,
The visits of friends to the lying-in room must be entirely forbidden, except in the case of those who have obtained special permission. So it's like, don't let just...
trusted to look after the welfare of our children. This is something that, you know, as a community, as a country, we need to do ourselves.
Are you on social media?
I am on social media. I use it sometimes to good effect. You know, if I'm looking at something that's useful, I'll have a look. But like I said, there's a lot of waffle out there. There's a lot of useless stuff out there that's no good to man or beast. So this is just taking up space and taking up space in children's brains. Why would you want to just waste your time? And that's what's happening. They're wasting their lives. They're going to bed with their phone in their hand and they're looking at it when they're falling asleep while they're looking at this phone and looking at apps and people. You know, that's really, really bad for them.
Mo, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to John Beattie, BBC Radio Scotland. So would you, excuse me, would you ban social media for under 16s? What happens in your house when it comes to phones or mobile phones? Do you have a problem with some of the kids? And do they use them at school? Let's talk to Sky Morgan. Sky, good morning to you.
Hi. Morning.
18 years old, live in Glasgow.
Yes.